come to the podium? Sure. My name is Brendan Riley, and my wife and I are the current owners of 209 Pembroke Avenue in South Wayne. Sure. My name is Brendan Riley, and my wife and I are the present owners of 209 Pembroke Ave in Wayne.
The issue is 209 Pembroke Avenue in Wayne, Pennsylvania, which is to demolish the existing greenhouse, add a two-story addition with a full front porch, and I was on Pembroke Avenue moments ago, flying by, I should say, given the traffic. I would like for you to present the observations from Bob. It's a 1920, the original house was built in 1928.
I believe the original was built in 1912.
Yeah, really?
Yeah,
Okay,
I actually...
well, he came up with 1928, and this is my background. I should be able to place it a little more, throw the dart a little harder, but...
Fortunately, when we purchased the property, the prior owner gave me the original blueprints from 1912 that our architect and our structural engineer are actually working off of.
That's
yeah.
Perfect. I would love to see.
It was very helpful.
At that time, Wayne, of course, was in, the classic colonial phase of its development. It had departed around 1900 from being Victorian. There were vestiges of Victorian you could see here and there, but the colonials started creeping in right after the centennial of 1876, which all of a sudden people re-inspired by colonial, and it went from there. So our colonial period is in that area very specifically. I mean, it's amazing. So if you will present your...
Sure. So 209 Pembroke was originally part of the Watson family estate, which was 205 Pembroke. So 205 Pembroke encompassed the square that my fingers are going around, and the original home is located here at 205 Pembroke. So the property that we purchased at 209 was subdivided by Mary Watson in, actually I have notes, I think it was 1965 or 1975.
We're trying to fit it on our screens, and you might want to push that forward a little bit.
Sure,
and
I'm
see
sorry.
what that does. That's
Yeah.
much better, thank you.
So this was originally one parcel. This was the Watson family home. There's a detached garage here. The structure that on the property that we purchased was originally the Watson garage and greenhouse. And along with it came a pool house, a pool, and a detached garage. In 1975, so John Watson passed away in 1965, and his wife, Mary M. Watson, became the sole owner of the property. She did a plan of subdivision with Yerkes Associates that was recorded April 2nd, 1975, which subdivided the parcel, and then into the two properties you see today. Our property is roughly 1.2 acres. In June of 1975, Ms. Watson also granted an easement on 20,309 square feet of the property, essentially the front portion of the property. And that easement was granted to the Radnor Land Conservancy, which is now the Natural Land Trust. So the front portion of the property cannot be built upon. So it'll stay the way it is now. The property that we're residing in currently was originally Mr. Watson's car garage, so he could park his cars in there. That property was purchased by the estate of Mary M. Watson in 1991 by Ronald and Patricia Gurn, who then undertook a project of converting it into a carriage house. That property was conveyed to John and Patricia Schrank in 1997, and we purchased a property from them in June of 2023. So this is the parcel. You have Luella Ave coming here on Pembroke, upland behind it. I just wanted to give you an idea where the property is actually located. You can see that the garage, or the home now, sits very far back in the lot, and it's really not visible from Pembroke the way it's oriented. The next page shows the existing parcels, the existing properties, and I have pictures of each of these. So if you look at 215 and 217 Pembroke, that's why Ms. Watson put the easement there, because this is in the R2 zoning district. There's enough acreage there, certainly, to subdivide, and somebody took advantage of that at 215 and 217 and subdivided that land into two parcels. So 215, I did not walk back. That's my neighbor, Frank Paris' house. He's actually on the Shade Tree Commission, but so he has a flag lot in the back, but that is the view from Pembroke Avenue, looking back his driveway. Adjacent to that is 217 Pembroke, and that's the residence that's currently there today. Across the street is 218 Pembroke. This property, I believe, was purchased in 2021, and they're undertaking a renovation of the front porch. Next parcel closest to Luella is 210 Pembroke. And then on our side of the street, adjacent to us, is 205 Pembroke, which is the original Watson estate. So those are the neighboring parcels. This is standing in about 10 feet from Pembroke. So this is when you drive by, this is what you see. So you can see the conservation easement area. The easement runs to about 10 feet in front of those brick steps coming off the pergola. So really what's visible from the street is the pergola, the pool house, and the property we're looking to renovate is located here in the back corner behind this holly tree.
Is that summer and winter?
What's that?
It's the only part that's visible. Pointed to the trees.
Well, you have, so this is a holly tree, so that won't lose its leaves. And then you have, I can go back here, I can show you better. It's hard to see with this property line, but there's a double row of arborvitaes that were planted here. And they're probably 35 feet tall today, and they're staggered in a staggering pattern. So the way the property line cuts back, if you're at the left side of Pembroke on our property, you can't even see it. And if you're on the far right side where the driveway is, you do have a vantage point of the right elevation of the property. So going back to the view from Pembroke. So this is the right elevation. So our driveway comes up the right side. This is directly behind the pool house. So this shows the existing structure that's there today. This is all slab on grade. It is concrete floors, and it's what's called a con system between the first and second floor. And it was apparently revolutionary in 1912. It's steel girders that are encased in concrete. So that in the carriage house itself, there's only one wall that is not freestanding. Everything else spans the entire length and width of the first and second floors. The small one-story section does have a full basement under it, and that's where all the utilities are run into. And then you can see the greenhouse structure. I don't think anybody's done anything with it since the Watsons were actively using it as a greenhouse. This is another picture of the right elevation, just gives it a slightly different vantage point. So the foundation for the greenhouse is still intact. I don't know if it's on footers. Inside is a little bit of concrete, mostly dirt, and I'll show you a picture of the inside, but it's basically created walking paths where they could go and do their thing with the plants. So this is the front elevation. So when you're looking in from Pembroke, this would be what you see. So you can see the entrance into the greenhouse. The greenhouse structure, there's, I'd say, less than 20% of the original glass is still there, and a lot of the steel is rusted and fallen into disrepair. This is the left side elevation. So this is the elevation that would be adjacent to 205. Where the two doors are here, that's where the original entrance into the garage was for Mr. Watson. And at some point, somebody filled that in and altered the elevation. So that's what's there. Included with my presentation, I have existing elevations. So this is the existing front, absent the greenhouse structure. Existing right elevation, existing rear elevation, which is not changing. Existing left elevation, and existing right elevation, which does show the greenhouse structure here. And then I have our proposed elevations. So this is our proposed front elevation. So this would be what you see from Pembroke Avenue. So what we're planning to do is remove the greenhouse structure, remove the one-story structure that's there, leaving the foundation intact. And we plan to put a foundation in of the exact dimensions of the greenhouse. We're going to have a slight bump out in the back that will allow access to the basement. So we have stairs to go down to the basement. And then off the front, we're going to have, for part of it, it's going to be an 11-foot front porch with a pergola. And the area here that's covered is going to be a 16-foot front porch with a fireplace. This is the small bump out in the back where it's 5 feet wide. It allows for stairs down to the basement. So that is the front elevation. This is the right elevation. So this is what, when you drive up the driveway and turn in, this is what you would see. So essentially, this is the existing greenhouse, the existing carriage house, which will stay as it is. It needs some stucco repointing. And then this is what we plan to add to it. And we try to do our best. I'm working with Reen Hoffman, who is very familiar with South Wayne. And this was the design that he came up with some of our input. So we tried to incorporate some of the architecture that you would see here, the sweeping roof line, the bay window, the cupola. So we tried to make this as appealing as we possibly could in terms of an addition. I have colored renderings as well. So this is essentially what the project would look like at completion. That is the right elevation. And this is the front elevation as you would see it from Pembroke Avenue. So really what we're planning to do is keep as much of the existing carriage house garage that was there intact. We're looking to remove the dilapidated greenhouse. We're looking to stay almost entirely within that footprint other than a 5-foot bump out on the rear to allow for stairs down to the basement. We are incorporating a front porch, and we are, to the degree we're able to, we're trying to extend it and wrap it as much as we can, being mindful of the township's impervious requirements.
It goes without saying that you've already trusted and your side yard.
We're within all the, yeah. So actually, I can share this with you. I do have a site plan here. So this, on the left side is the existing, and this better depicts the arborvitae rows that are there. This is the proposed. It's hard to see this dotted line represents the 15-foot side yard setback. So we're probably within 5 feet of it, but we're not encroaching on it at all. So we're fully within all the setbacks. So we don't have any dimensional challenges. The impervious or net new is going to be under 1,000 square feet. So we'll do infiltration, but we won't have the need to do the full-blown rate and volume controls.
What building material are you using for this tower?
Hardy plank. Hardy plank.
Okay. Bob had some thoughts on this, and his feeling was that the size of the replacement, or excuse me, the addition, truly has taken over the house. In other words, it's bigger. What is the square footage of the addition?
Of the addition, probably 2,000 square feet. I can give you, let me see. It looks large from the side angle, but it's not deep. I don't think I have anything to,
The original house is
so the-
3,000?
what's that?
The original house
Correct.
is 3,200, or?
I believe it's 33.
I apologize. I didn't do the. There we go.
So
do the
dimensionally,
math, if you will, for me, and what will the total be?
I'd say 6,000 square feet total.
Okay.
So
Bob's?
when you look at this, it is a bit deceiving, but I'd say from the house to the rear is roughly 47 feet,
Mhm.
and the width is 25. So this side elevation gives the appearance of it being large, and we did want a grand appearance when we pull into the driveway this way, but from the street side, it's 25 feet, and then with the covered porch area, it extends to roughly 40 feet.
No,
And
What are
and
you-
then on
I'm
the,
sure you have thoughts, so I'm going to invite questions.
yeah, just a couple questions. So then on the second floor, does that, the second floor of the extension, does that kind of cut in on the existing home side? Does that kind of cut into the existing home? Because it looks like because the roof line now the roof line is elevated, extends all the way to the peak of the existing home.
Correct.
So is that kind of part of it where you're kind of cutting in and then adding into the existing home?
Correct. So this existing gable
Yeah.
is going to need to get removed,
Mhm.
and that essentially that allows for the ability to put a hallway to access the space over top. These roofs here are severely sloped,
Mhm.
so there's a bathroom, existing bathroom today, where the two windows are on the right side of the chimney. The room to the right of that is where my daughter's staying right now, and the roof line comes down to a 3-foot floor plate. It's not a functional space, and the space to the left is a closet that, when you open the door, it hits the ceiling. So we need to be able to open that up and raise it to provide access to the addition.
Could you talk about just maybe some of the additional design cues? I'm looking at the new elevations relative to the existing structure, and I don't really see a lot of continuity between the two. So I'm curious if there was inspiration taken from maybe some of the surrounding properties. Essentially, kind of how did you arrive at this? And I think kind of to Terry's and I guess Bob's comments, I mean, you're creating a new home. You're not adding an addition. You're making the old house an addition. So you're sort of building anew. So as you're doing that, kind of where are you sort of taking the cues?
Sure. So I think one of the things that we tried to do is, when you look at the site plan, you have the pool house and the pool, and they're really on their own right now.
Mhm.
And the pool house pergola and the pool are, again, they're what you see from the street. And when I tell people where they live, they don't even know where the house is because nobody ever sees it.
It is really far back there. I walk that street all the time,
Yeah.
so I always kind of wonder what it is.
So what we tried to do was we wanted outdoor space. We wanted to have a covered porch. We think covered porches add a lot of character. They're consistent with what you see in South Wayne. But we also wanted to better connect the outdoor amenities to the existing home. And we obviously we don't have the ability to go really in any other direction than towards the pool. So that's why we brought it out. We also have 4 children, so there's 6 of us living in the house. So, all we really did was stayed within the exact footprint of what is there. And that gives us 3 bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, and that's it. The 3rd bathroom is actually where this chimney is right here.
Mhm.
So again, it looks like a large addition, but when you look at what it actually is, it's, it's a 2,000 square foot addition. The reason it's large is because it's 2 stories.
I guess, so, part of my question was, for example, so you're going to have the hardy siding.
Mhm.
The existing home is going to remain stucco.
Correct.
So, what is the choice for that interface? Why one here, one siding here, one siding here?
Well, the existing house is 26 inches thick concrete, so unless you do fairing strips or something, you can't change it. And the home is so solidly built. I mean, it's like a bunker. It's probably the safest house in South Wayne if there's ever any sort of threat or inclement weather. So really, that just needs to be cleaned up. There's cracks, but and the only way to clean that up is to re-stucco it. I'm not a big fan of putting stucco on new with all the challenges that have been present in southeastern Pennsylvania with stucco and water penetration. I think there's a stigma towards it with future buyers. So I think hardy plank is a very high quality material and an adequate substitution for stucco. And we're doing our best to try to blend in old with new, but I'm just not comfortable putting a stucco facade on the house.
Fair.
Yeah.
And it looks like you're going to try to color coordinate with the hardy plank. And then
Correct.
kind of probably repaint the existing stucco to kind of make it more cohesive.
Correct.
Okay.
The 2 issues I had was the size, but then I satisfied myself by looking at the site plan that this elevation is deceptive. That it's
Correct. And that's the side.
very large. And the details, there's a bracket on one roof, there isn't one of the, there's little things like that, but I see where you're going with it. It's okay.
I know from Bob that he was not comfortable with the relative size of one piece to the other. Sometimes it works rather oddly when you try to build an existing, new, and add to an existing. And he would like, and I'm going to suggest this because I think what he is going to seek and ask for is a continuation on this so that we have a little bit more time to study this plan. He might suggest, or we might suggest a scaling down a little bit so that it's not such an overwhelming site. And I think the only thing, but you hate to have this as the only redeeming value, not being seen from the road. But trees can come down, and you don't want it to become the neighborhood, thing that looks out of whack, because it.
So I guess I'm having trouble. When you look, this is what you would see from Luella. And again, you would see probably that over, because this is going to be behind arborvitaes that are pre-existing, that are going to stay there. Because again, if you go back to the site plan, the property line goes straight back and then curves. So if you look at the line of arborvitaes, they're directly in line with about where the fireplace is. So the significant majority of this house won't even be visible from the street, number one. Number two, this is the elevation you will see from the street.
What
This
your
is
front
essentially a
entrance?
side
Is
elevation.
that your front entrance, the one that you're pointing?
This right here is our front entrance. But this is as you're facing it from the street, this would be the right elevation.
So
But the,
people will enter through that door.
Cor-
primarily.
correct. So if you, again, going back to the site plan, this is our driveway, and our driveway goes all the way up to the back and turns in here. So it doesn't make sense to put a front door out on facing Pembroke. It makes sense. That's where we're putting the front door where the front door is currently located. So we're not changing any of that.
Well, from
And we had looked at doing a lower roof line.
Mhm.
The challenge we have is where you connect, you're going to have a ceiling clip due to construction, and this hallway is going to have a clip about halfway through where it goes from 8 feet down to 6 feet 8 inches. And it's just not, when you're making this kind of an investment, you have to also think about where you're going to get your return. Someday, this is for my family, we're living there, but someday we're looking at, also you have to think about functionality. I don't want to spend the type of money we're going to spend and have a ceiling clip on the inside that's at 6 feet 8 inches. So we had to raise the ceiling height and have a taller ceiling in order to have an 8-foot opening.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, and I, certainly, understand and empathize with what you're saying. I don't think, at least from my perspective, I'm not opposed to the project in principle. When I look at the elevation of the proposal, it feels like there is a entirely new house being attached to a smaller old house. I really like the sort of the history and all the details that you've laid out. But I think from my perspective, kind of given the scale of this, I think it would be helpful to also get the architects, just a better understanding of where the architect was coming from in essentially putting something like this together with something that was existing. This is a very large change. I understand the point about, there is a piece that is visible from the front. You will be able to see part of the side from the front. As Terry sort of said, we don't want the only benefit being that you can't see it. I think this makes a lot of sense from a program standpoint and from a size standpoint. I like the, the way that you're not creating a lot of additional impervious coverage. You're sticking to the floor plan of the greenhouse. There's a lot of merit, but when I look at it stylistically, it feels very incongruous. And there's, again, in my initial reading, limited stylistic cues in the new structure being taken from the existing structure, and then maybe there's stuff being taken.
Can you help me understand, like what? So when you look at the existing structure, we're using the exact same type of windows. The window patterns match. I'm not sure what other.
The scale of the windows is different. The bay, use of the bay versus not.
The what?
Use of a bay window versus sort of a flat plane.
Again, that's not going to be visible from the street.
The cupola choice. I guess, again, I would feel more comfortable getting a better understanding of the stylistic inputs.
Of the what?
The stylistic inputs into the new design, given the scale of it relative to the existing structure.
So when you say scale, it's smaller than the existing structure.
Well, it doesn't have to be smaller, but more relative. This is a kind of overwhelming addition. I think that's what everybody.
Well, but again, you have to understand, this is an accessory structure. This was not a primary residence. This was a garage and a greenhouse that has fallen into disrepair, and we're looking to make a very nice improvement to this property. If this was an existing historical structure, primary structure, I could understand, but this is a garage that somebody converted into a carriage house. So I can't help where the roof line started. I can't help that in 1912 they built this with a lower roof line. I could find you a host of homes in South Wayne that have gables where one gable is lower than the roof line, though. I'm confident of that. So I don't, we keep talking about the scale, but I think the homeowner also, like, where does the homeowner's needs come into play? And that's, I have a family of 6. We're, living in this house for, if you guys postpone this, I'm in this for another month before I can start anything. My air conditioning doesn't work because it failed, and I don't want to replace it until I start doing this work, and we're in the middle of a heat wave. But it's literally, it's impacting a family of 6. Continuing this over.
We know that we're going to have warm weather for a while.
I'm sorry?
We know we'll have warm weather to work in for a long time because we never got a flake of snow last winter, I think. But aside from that, my feeling, and I don't know how you feel, is that we do a continuance on this if you can wait a month and take this back, study it, and if you can, come back with an explanation of why, just the scale of the property, the new
When you say
versus the
scale, so
old.
I'd like to have I don't want to come, I've been in front of this board before, and I've gotten, every time it's a moving target on what I need to do. Last time it was for a new construction house that was being built for business, and I understood why the board was hard, but this is for my family. And I don't want to come in front of the board with something and then it's, well, can we change this and it's another month, and can you change this, it's another month. If there's specifics, you can't just give me scale, because I don't want to, the size of this is what we want to build. It's what our family needs. I'm going to end up with 5 bedrooms in this house. I have 4 children. I need 5 bedrooms. So, and the largest bedroom is the primary, which is 16 by 16. Other than that, they're all normal bedroom sizes. So I understand how this print may give the appearance that we're building some monstrosity, but when you look at this, I think it puts it into a better light. I mean, this is the area that we're building on, and I guess it's hard for me to understand when there's an existing structure there that's dilapidated, that is an eyesore from the street, and we're proposing additions, and I don't understand. When you say scale, I don't want to have 8-foot ceilings with clips in my ceilings. So when you say scale, I need something actionable that I can leave here with, go to my architect, and say, this is exactly what they want to see implemented. So when I come back in front of this board, if I have to come in front of this board again, you're going to say, we see that you've done what we've asked, and your project is approved. But giving me scale and cues is not helping me understand what, it's ambiguous. I need to know what exactly you're looking for.
I'm going to ask you a question. I believe you said the property size is an acre?
It's 1.2 acres,
1.8, that's what I thought.
but half of it sits within the 40-foot rear yard setback. That's how far back it is. It's 352 feet is the lot line.
And
Not to make this more complex, I'm not as worried with the scale as I am with some of the detailing. The original building is stucco. We already talked about your interest in having a different material, but it has a stone water table, or whatever we'd like to call the area below the windows. I'm wondering why something like that wasn't continued around, and also to the front of the house where there's this element here, maybe it could be incorporated on that element. I think it's what Constantine was saying. Some of the elements aren't really as sympathetic to the original building. You have the big change in the siding materials, which I can understand your need for that, but maybe some of the elements could be carried over. There's brackets that I mentioned on the roof, one of the new, but there isn't on the old. There's sort of a vent at the top.
There are on the old, actually.
Are there? Okay.
Yeah. And the brackets are meant to replicate as much as we can. Those are wooden brackets, and we're using 5-pons, but,
Okay.
so you can see right here, that bracket. So there's brackets on all 3 corners of that gable. There's a bracket right there. So the brackets actually were put in to
That's better.
mimic what is existing.
I just don't know why some of more of the elements, when we've had other additions here, that more of the same elements have been carried forward.
Well,
across.
and to answer your question about the stone water table,
Mhm.
so again, this house is slab on grade. This is going to be under foundation. This whole area here is a front porch. So it doesn't, you don't, I mean, we incorporated the AZAC boxes here. But I don't think it would look good to have a stone water table that projects more than halfway up across the front door. So if we tried to incorporate the stone water table at the same line, it's essentially going to go through the bay window. It's going to, it wouldn't be below the bay window, it would be above it. And so I just,
Maybe you're right about the entrance there. I'm not sure about that.
what's that?
How about the front elevation, where there are no, where the windows are at a different elevation? Is that just the way the floor or the inside, without having an interior plan, I can't tell.
This is a family room in here.
Okay.
So it's a family room. These sliding glass doors come out from the family room onto a covered porch. So from the street, this stone is not visible when you look at it from the street. This is what you would see. So having stone across here, maybe catch a little bit of the back there.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be opposed to putting, if the board felt that putting stone across here, I would be okay with that.
There are things that show up in elevations that wouldn't show up in real life as much, like the framing that's, or the molding, or whatever you want to call it, that's on the front fireplace, the new fireplace chimney. It's stucco, which makes sense, but then there's like these two rectangular elements on it, which are not indicative of the existing house.
Mhm.
So, now, look, when I'm standing there, I'm probably not even going to see it much, but in the elevation, it makes it look like it's a different type of construction altogether. Maybe it's just the way the rendering is done that.
Well, again, those two chimneys would not be in the same eye shot. So I think the architect's thought there was to add some dimension to the fireplace, the chimney. The existing chimney is what it is. I mean, that was actually added onto the house at some point, because the original carriage house did not have that. So at some point, somebody added that to this property.
Right.
But you wouldn't see the two in the same eye shot.
Okay.
But I think it would be helpful, again, to have more clear instructions. I feel like I'm getting some ambiguity. I understand the scale. I think as a homeowner with needs to house 4 children, we need the size that we're seeking. I can tell you this existing carriage house, because it is slab on grade and because the walls are so thick, it's not as large as it sounds, because you're losing 26 inches around the perimeter of the house.
Well, I'm not opposed to the scale myself. Hearing everything that's been described, I'm more just concerned with the fact that the new will look so different than the old, which I think is what.
I
Constantine-
feel that.
Yeah, that's essentially my issue. Again, this scale, the sort of lateral scale, the amount of square footage that you're looking to add, I have no issue with that. It's the incongruity of the new structure to the old structure. I think, the part of the reason why it does look like it dwarfs the existing one is because your roof line is higher than the existing roof line. It's as simple as that, right?
Mhm.
As soon as you do something like that, you're creating a primary mass and a secondary mass. You're creating a new primary mass where before the existing house was the primary mass. So now we have to read the new structure as primary and the existing house as secondary. Additionally, if you look at the two front elevations, the existing front elevation, let's ignore the greenhouse, the
Yeah.
dilapidated greenhouse on it, which again, it's another thing. We appreciate that you're replacing it. That's great.
Yeah.
But you had a relatively symmetrical existing front elevation. Your new front elevation, which you're kind of arguing as the front of the house, is now asymmetrical. It doesn't really make sense as a front elevation. Whereas you have a little bit more of that lateral symmetry in the new side elevation. So now this facade that you're arguing is the front isn't really the front, because it's not designed to be the front by the architect's decision here, right? The long lateral is the new front of the house.
Well, it
so
depends how I mean, if
it's
I went in front of the.
it's a little bit semantic, but now this is the thing that's going to be visible from the road, and what's visible from the road is an asymmetric side elevation versus a neat symmetrical front elevation. Setting aside the dilapidated greenhouse. So there's a number of stylistic choices made by the architect that, for me, are confusing. And that's why I think.
Can you just cite a couple examples? Because I'm going to share this with him so
Sure.
he can.
The change in the front elevation, again, you're creating a side elevation from what used to be a clear symmetric front elevation. the choice of creating a new primary mass, the primary mass being created because you have a taller roof line than the existing massing.
Can I just go back to your first one?
Sure.
So the only reason if you look at what's here, this symmetry is the exact same as this symmetry, with the exception we had to add, again, a rear staircase because there's no other way to get down to the basement.
And then what about the porch mass on the right? I mean,
That's a covered porch.
right, but I'm saying that next to, so you don't have a repetition of that on the left side of the main.
I understand that, but I feel like
Right.
if I came in front of this board without a front porch, I don't think the board would have said, you need to add a front porch. I've been in front of the board before. I presented projects without front porches, and I've been told you need to add a front porch. So we added a front porch. We wanted to have a covered element to it,
Yeah.
which made sense to add living space. So we can't get rid of this and create the symmetry. And if you close it off, it's not a covered porch, now it's living space. So I would welcome your input on how I can achieve the objective you're looking for with keeping a full covered porch there.
This side of the board has no problem with a covered porch, nor does it feel that it requires a covered porch. I think it's a nice idea to have it. But again, what I'm getting at is, you know, this is the front. It will be visible, or it will be acting as the front, and so we are paying more attention to this elevation. And in this elevation, you see a lot of the differences between the new home and the existing home. You see the differences in the roof lines, et cetera. So I think that's where we're harping, because I hate to use air quote, the quote-unquote new front elevation isn't really a front elevation.
Right.
The right elevation is the new front.
I think there needs to be consistency, because I think if I went in front of the zoning board,
Yeah, that's fair. I
they wouldn't
understand.
call this a front elevation, they would call it a right elevation
Yeah.
based on the orientation of the house. So this elevation here is completely invisible from the street. It's also 250 feet back. But again, this is an accurate depiction of what would be seen from Pembroke, not this. Our guests and our family, when we pull in, this is what we'll see.
Yeah.
That, again, is what the public will see. So I understand. I'm not trying to be combative. I'm just, a lot of thought went into this. And I have a family that's been living in this house since July, and we're into September, and now we're going to be looking at November, and it's going to start getting cold, and getting foundations in becomes difficult. I have 4 kids who just moved schools. We're trying to, keep things as stable as we can on a house front. And obviously, this is going to be a disruption, but, the sooner, we're hoping to get this underway sooner rather than later, because the longer we delay this, the longer it's going to impact our familial situation as well.
And your thoughts? Like you've given them? Do you have any additional?
No additional.
I think I'm going to go back to square one. The original proposal to ask for a continuance until next month, so that we have a really good chance to look at this, because at the moment it's appearing to us all as extremely discordant, or a house more planned for the needs of the family than the way it looks overall. And whether we'll feel the same way after we've, studied every nut and bolt.
Yeah.
It's, as you say, hard to see from the street. I would like to take a look and just think long and hard, especially about the planning of the windows. This so often happens when a house is planned with the needs of the family first, and with how many, four kids?
4 kids.
Well, believe me, I appreciate your need for space, especially. So I don't want to hold your project up longer, but I would like to ask for a continuance and propose that additional time to look at this longer and consider possibly aligning it in such a way that it will be, it won't hit you like an eyesore, because
I understand what you're saying. I
Yeah,
just,
I think-
I don't feel like I'm walking out, other than putting a stone water table here, I really don't feel like I can come out of here with anything concrete from my architect, number one. Number two, these plans need to be submitted 15 days prior to a board meeting.
Mhm.
It's not my fault if you didn't have a chance to study them prior to the meeting. I shouldn't be continued a month because you didn't have an ample opportunity. And number three, I feel like Board Member Bob, Board Member President, who's not here, is having a little bit of undue influence because he had concerns about the scale and size, which I feel is impacting your decision directly. Again, not my problem, he can't be here today. But I don't think I should be delayed for a month because he had concerns about the scale, which we've already discussed, the need for the scale and the reason why the roof lines need to be the way they are. Believe me, if I could put a lower roof line in here, I'd probably save $75,000 in construction costs. It's just not practical to have a ceiling clip at 6 feet 8 inches. It just doesn't work. So I think the board needs to also be fair to me as the applicant. You know, I did everything I needed to do. I got my submission in 15 days prior. I'm here, there's two members absent. And now I'm walking out of here with a lack of full detail on what needs to be done in order to get the
Yeah.
certificate of appropriateness. And
Yeah,
if there was,
maybe if I can speak a little bit more plainly. The addition looks nothing like the existing house. That is a design decision by your architect. Your architect should have been here tonight to clarify why they chose to design this in a way to look nothing like the existing structure.
the existing structure was a garage.
It's the existing structure. Again, you know, I'm looking at two masses that don't seem to fit together. There are a lot of design choices here that the designer needs to explain.
Okay, so you're essentially saying the architect isn't qualified to do this?
I'm sure the architect is more than qualified to do this. But when we're looking at it, we see a lot of incongruity. It's not one person on the board seeing incongruity, it's multiple people. We would like additional explanation given the scale and the size of this project. We understand this is very important for you and your family to get done, but we feel like we need pretty significant additional explanation.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand why the right elevation is so important to the board when it's not visible from the street. I don't understand that. Typically, this is the elevation that the board is most concerned with. So all we focused on is incongruity between these two. When we're talking about a garage that was built in 1912 and a new addition that's going to be built in 1923, there's going to be incongruity. I can't make them look the same, but I don't know why we're focused on this because the front door's there when that is the right elevation and this is what's going to be seen from the street. So I think that's where
and not straight now.
it's not in
Okay.
focus.
There you
Yeah.
go.
So I think that's where I'm having a hard time understanding why the board is so concerned about the right elevation, which is not going to be visible from the street.
I am
It's
also
gotta-
concerned about the front elevation.
Okay, so beyond putting in a stone water table, what else? We've got the brackets which match the existing house. We already talked about the need for a covered porch. We put in a fireplace. It's a full chimney. Help me understand.
Terry, do you recall any other examples of projects like this?
Well,
So, because, you know, in fairness, in my tenure on the board, I have
I can
not
show
seen
you
anything
the
of.
closest example I could find
Mhm.
is 407 Luella, which is around the corner. But, and this was a house that was obviously a large house built at the time, but I tried to find an example of a cantilever in a front elevation, and this was the closest thing that I could find, and it's about 4 houses away.
Mhm.
So, you know, having a cantilevered porch area here, it's not entirely dissimilar to what 407 Luella currently has.
407, okay, I know that house. Yeah, it's a little bit apples and oranges in terms of the relative massing of the two, is it not?
Correct. Well, yeah, you have
Yeah,
a,
that's what I'm saying. Again, nothing about a front porch with a fireplace is out of line. That design element is fine in and of itself. We're thinking in relation to the broader picture. Sorry, going back. Terry, have there been other examples where, again, essentially you're creating a new home and then you are subordinating the existing structure?
Well, that is definitely true when you see the outcome. But there, thank heavens you weren't here for one of our board members who would have had every window lined up the same, and that does not have to be the same, but there is a discordant note even on the side of the house.
I'm sorry?
Well, I'm looking at the side of the house where the windows are placed everywhere.
Correct, that's due to floor plan.
No thought to size.
No, there's thought to size. This is a bathroom. This is actually a water closet.
Mm-hmm.
This is in a bathroom. This is in a closet. This one
But
can
where
move
they're
if we needed to.
placed relative to the house, and the size relative to the downstairs. In other words,
And relative to the second floor
sizes of
above
the windows are different.
Can I
The
ask you a question?
placement in the side of the house.
Would you want a full-size window in your bathroom?
Yeah, it's being planned from the inside out. It's being planned
Right.
from the way
It's plan
logically
driven.
you want to walk.
Well, it needs to be because of the way the structures,
It needs to be to an extent. It can't be fully plan-driven, because to Terry's point, now you have 3 windows on top of 2. Why don't you have why not a 4th window? And then if you have the 4 windows across, they are not as tall as the windows directly to the right of it, so then you have another scale imbalance.
so would you want us to add another window here?
Could you? Again, I'm not telling you to do that, but why not?
What I'm hoping to come out of here, if you're going to continue this, is a list of what I need to put in this house, so I can come in front of the board in October, and you can say, here you go.
Yeah.
Start your project. This was designed because the floor plan, this is narrow. So we have a hallway that runs along this side. These are bedrooms on this side. The front out here, this is the primary bedroom. This is the primary bathroom and closets. It's very difficult to design a bathroom around exterior walls because of plumbing issues. This rear is also cantilevered 2 feet. So we have to be careful about where we put our plumbing lines. So I understand what the board's looking for. When you're designing a house, you also have to think about, believe me, we went through probably 9 iterations on this bathroom and closets just trying to find something that worked. So if we need to put another window there, that's fine, it's in a closet, we can do that. I don't think anybody wants a full-size window looking in over their bathtub or looking in over their toilet. So if we want a stone water table, happy to add it. If we want a 4th window there, happy to add it. If we don't like the chimney design, happy to change it.
I think the drop-off in the roof, there are discordant notes. I won't want to start with the beginning as the ugly duckling, but not every ugly duckling can be turned into a swan. Some can be turned into uglier ducklings. And it's the design
So I guess my
just doesn't
question is,
as
what would your comments be on
I don't know.
the architecture of this?
Yeah,
I mean, there's nothing historical about this, but this house was just built two doors down. You know, I think, not to pick on that house, but I think the addition we're proposing,
I'm saying particularly in new construction where the builders have put windows haphazardly all over the house.
I can explain why that's done that way. If we didn't have this return gable there, it would look like a structure just sitting on stilts. So the reason it has to be pushed out here is to allow for this gable and allow these roof lines to work. If this was flush, this gable would go away. You'd have 3 windows, those 2, the fireplace, and the columns underneath. So we actually did put a lot of thought into getting a return gable in there and getting the fireplace between the windows, the chimney. So if you want my architect to come in here and if that would make you more comfortable, but I spent a lot of time working with him on this plan, and I can tell you everything that you're thinking about, we've, have thought about. We've got hours and hours into this plan trying to bring forth something that's thoughtful. And when you're talking about trying to marry in new with old, marrying in new with old is one challenge. Marrying in new with what was a garage is a whole different set of challenges.
In particular with the kind of space you're adding, which is more than equal the original.
No, less than equal.
Equal. It's a difficult proposition. And I think the thing that saves it in terms of the way you're thinking is the fact that it won't be visible from the road.
Correct.
Correct.
Correct. And I think if you look at the square footage of this house relative to the significant majority of the houses around it, it's probably smaller than most. I mean, the two houses across the street are easily 7,000 square feet. The house on Luella that just sold was 5,900 square feet. The house across from that's 10,000 square feet. The house on the corner of Luella and Pembroke is at least 9,000 square feet. I don't think when you talk about the size of what the finished square footage, we're not going to be out of character for the
Size,
neighborhood.
I don't,
Yeah, I don't
We
think,
should be
we
clear,
don't have no issue with this.
we're not going to object to the size.
we're not objecting.
No,
to
no
the
objection
size
to
of
the
it.
size.
I don't want him to show up
No,
next time
it
and
has-
Bob say, well, it's still as large as it was.
It has much to do, more to do with proportion and the way it's
Right.
looking to us on the table and on the screen.
That's what that's what I.
And I would still like to seek a continuance until October, so we have one more chance to bring the architect. We're not as mean as we look, but we are thoughtful.
Yeah.
Is the
and-
cupola something that you're dying to
I'd be
have?
happy to get rid of it.
I mean, I'm just looking at.
The architect put that in there thinking that, there's a lot of homes in
I think I saw one on one.
South
of the
Wayne that do
other
have
photos.
cupolas, but I'm certainly not married to it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, it's not an element picked up from before. I'm not saying it's a bad element, it may look terrific when you see it against the whole house. These elevations can be so deceptive.
So I think, again, and I just want to understand, so is the right side elevation critical in your opinion, not being visible from the street? And if it is, I'd like to understand, I can't leave here today understanding how the board is suggesting I better marry in new with a garage that was built in 1912. That is a challenge for me. And if there's pushback, I need to know what, there's going to be incongruities, I understand that. That's a given, but what is it that you would like to see? And on the front elevation, what is it you would like to see? Because again, I don't want to come in front of the board in October and there's two new members here that haven't reviewed this and I get continued again.
I guess I would ask the architect about the cupola, see if that's a critical element, and it's not in your mind, in his composition. Ask him, I'm not going to design the front of this building for you, but ask him about the stone water table, whether that's something that would make sense on the front element, or whether there's other reasons not to do it. I know it's hardy plank, not stucco, I got that. The windows patterns that you've spoken of on the second floor particularly, are you suggesting a fourth window, or are you just saying restudy it so that it makes more sense? Do you have a specific size or anything like that, or not?
No, I'm
Okay.
just, that if the sizes were proportionate, in other words, you could have two on the top. And right now, we have them placed in such a way, you could, everything is just out of order. In other words, the size is not the same, the placement is not the same, it's just kind of all over to one side. on the top.
Could you, if
much
we put a
more-
fourth window there, would the board be okay with that? Because I can't put full-size, windows in a water
Yeah,
closet.
but I understand, but there are, there, it needs to be lined up in such a way that it's not all haphazard. Right now, it's looking like a.
If you added a fourth window directly above this, it would be
Yeah.
symmetrical. The 4 windows would be spaced evenly, 2 would be lined up with the 2 windows below it.
And if the two are lined up perfectly, it would appear perfectly. One larger than the other, I don't think that's an issue unless the bottom two are not the same.
I believe they're the same.
The bottom 2 are
They
exactly
do-
the same.
They do look the same. And so one more window would be, would at least make that side of the house look proportionate.
Okay, so we'll add one more small window above this window.
Yeah,
That would go a long way, honestly.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't address the balance of the elevation, because you do have the secondary mass to the right, but it does address an issue of symmetry, which is helpful.
Okay, so what I've gotten so far is water table, fourth window, no cupola.
And I know that the windows aren't going to sit on the water table, I don't think, exactly like the other details. So that's something that's beyond my capability to design for you. Just ask your architect, how might that elevation with some semblance of a water table and the height of the windows wherever they reside look similar to the existing carriage house?
Yeah, we would bring the water table to the base of the windows on the first floor.
Good, okay.
Could you, can you put up the right elevation? I have just a couple more questions. The mass on the left, the covered porch,
Mhm.
so does that protrudes from the surface? I'm just trying
Correct, so from this corner here
Mm-hmm.
to this column,
Yeah,
the front porch is 11 feet.
okay,
This area here, it's 16 feet. So the porch comes like this, across, and then out towards the pool 5 feet, and then across.
so, okay, the stairs to the front door relative to the facade, relative to that piece on the, I'll just say on the left, where is that in terms of depth? I'm having a real tough time with this.
Okay, so here's the primary addition, front porch, fireplace, stairs in. So the stairs are
Okay.
wholly behind the 16-foot covered porch area.
Okay, so then the part that protrudes, that face is further out than, let's say, the face of the existing structure?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you think a first floor plan, not the interior, we're not trying to get into the interior, but do you think a first floor plan would be helpful in showing the way, what Constantine's talking about, showing?
Yeah, first and second floor plan, again, just the outside outlines, it is challenging. Like,
So I can basically spell it out, and I apologize. I've been in front of the board before, and I brought floor plans and was told, we don't care about those, we don't want to see them.
Yeah, we don't care about the inside.
It's the plan of the porch, basically, is what he's talking about.
Okay, so I can explain it to
layout.
you.
Okay,
So essentially, the driveway comes in here, okay? From the driveway across to this area here, which I can show you on the site plan as well. So you can see we have a proposed walkway. So that's how we're going to connect. So there is this structure here that's essentially a back door into what's going to be a mudroom. So that would be more of a family entrance on the driveway. But you would walk across this gravel walkway, and then you would have these steps up to the front porch. From the corner of the existing house to this pillar, this column right here, the front porch will be 11 feet deep. These will be, I think there's 3 or 4 steps up. It'll be a step-up threshold into the house. That's what you're seeing right where my finger is. And you can see this 11 feet here, and then it comes out 5 feet. The whole goal of that is to have the ability to put tables there. You can't
Yeah.
put a table and have outdoor living space on a 11-foot porch. It just doesn't work. And then obviously we wanted to get living space above that in the form of our bedroom because the addition didn't allow for that. So we got a 16-foot covered area and we got a suitable living space above it. I actually think the double bay window is
Okay.
super attractive. We have seen, I
Yeah.
worked on this with the architect, and we went through a bunch of different iterations, and I thought this was the one that nailed it. And, you know,
I think from my perspective, if you, so, and the, if you were to propose simply the addition as a new construction home, I don't think we would have any issue with it. Right, it looks nice on its own, proportionally makes sense. It's the interplay with the existing where we just keep getting stuck on the proportion, the visual relative proportion.
Mhm.
Right, we've assessed that the size is fine. The interplay of the windows, and again, I think, you know, we understand this is a challenging addition. You know, I was looking at this right elevation, trying to think about, okay, what can you do to sort of balance it out? This is a big ask.
I understand.
A big design challenge. So I get that it's,
And I can tell you, I've spent
yeah.
a lot of money
Oh, I
going
bet.
through different plans with the architect, saying, no, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenge is we tried to make this feel like it's a gable and integrated into the structure. And adding the sweeping roof line to do that, I thought was a nice touch. But the challenge is this is not, I don't know if it's 25 feet high, 20 feet high. It's just not tall enough. And again, the first iteration the architect had, we kept that same gable roof line coming out, and it just didn't work for access.
Yeah.
So we had to go taller.
Could you, and again, we're not trying to design this house, like on the existing structure, if you go to the right elevation, could you carry the roof line sort of across and just cut the little corner
Okay.
on the top of the addition? Do you know what I mean?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
So the roof line's coming from the existing structure.
Here?
Right there. Yeah, just run it across.
Flip it?
Yeah, clip that corner. Just even something like that, all of a sudden now you're, I feel like, communicating better between the new mass and the existing mass. Instead of, right now it reads, you're putting a bigger thing on top of a smaller thing, and then the 90-degree angle just sort of cuts it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas this, now, you're losing a insignificant part of volume underneath that clipped roof line.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you. I don't think it presents, my only concern is if it presents any sort of challenges with
Yeah.
creating an awkward clip or anything like that, but provided it doesn't, and
Again,
the
just so the two run into each other better, because we're already looking at, we're focusing on the right elevation. You say it's not visible from the street. I've walked past. I think it will be, to an extent. You do have that big holly tree, which does block a lot of it. But there's less communication between the existing windows and the new windows in terms of scale, both vertical and horizontal, in terms of count. You have gable versus not, additional dormer set up at the top. That piece, on the left-hand side does protrude further than the existing mass. So there's a lot of changes going on. There are a lot of incongruities going on, but again, if you just had, being repetitive, but if you just had the new addition as the only house, it'd probably be fine on its own. I'm just trying to find ways to make them integrate better, because currently they're, again, we've discussed issues.
you do realize this clip would be completely invisible from the street, no matter where you were.
I don't want that to be the only metric for assessing the appropriateness of an addition. I understand it can help, but I don't think we want to fall back on that.
So what would you want on the other side then, if we're talking about congruity? Because I don't have clips on the other side.
Yeah. Probably stay on its own. Again, it's tough, right? Because
Well, it's tough for me because I'm getting, you know, if I put a clip there and I don't have a clip here, I'm going to come in front of the board next time and they're going to say, somebody's going to say, why do you have a clip on one side, not on the other? Come back and see us in November. Like, it's hard for me. I'm not trying to be difficult to the board. I'm trying to walk out of here with actionable items. And I keep getting incongruities and inconsistencies. And that's the nature of construction when you marry something that's 112 years older, than the existing structure, which again was a garage. So it's going to be impossible to not have incongruities.
and I think we're just trying to limit them. I think
On a side elevation.
front
Side,
elevation.
it's a side. If I talk to the zoning board, it's a side elevation. If I put this on a plot, if I went in front of the zoning hearing board and said, this is my front elevation, they would say, that's your side elevation. Am I incorrect with that?
Their definition of a side elevation does not directly impact our definition of a side elevation. You're not wrong. But that's,
So Harb has a different definition of a side elevation than Radnor Township does?
it's not relevant.
I'm just asking a question. I'm having trouble because it's,
Yeah. No, I think we are trying to provide, we're trying to provide actionable feedback without redesigning.
I know, but you're not providing specifics. You keep telling me incongruities and inconsistencies. I understand that. But I don't have anything actionable. I can't walk out of here and say anything other than they don't like the way the new ties into the old. Other than that, I've got nothing that's actionable. Perhaps a clip here, but honestly, that's really the only thing you guys have given me. So if a board's going to shoot down my
Can that be
plan,
done? Am I missing a point? Can that roof line be evened?
huh?
Can the roof line
Be even
so
here?
That's not, yes.
No, I
not
can't.
that roof. Go up, raise your finger there. Can that roof line be made more even so that
It's
it's
100%.
not jutting above? Yeah.
So
You're not saying lower, are you? Are you saying lower, or are you saying?
No, I'm saying one or the other.
I don't understand what you're saying. The roof line has to be taller. We discussed this already because I can't
think
can't get into
that's
the
what you're
addition.
talking about, isn't it? That the,
I think we're getting into.
So I'm not trying,
This
so,
is a tough argument, right? Because from your perspective, which is perfectly valid from a functional standpoint, that's how tall the thing needs to be. The problem is it's next to an existing structure that is ill-equipped for what you're trying to do. And you're trying to push them together somehow, and we're saying this doesn't work. We don't know, and we're not here to design how to make that work. I think we're trying, and I understand the frustration with you want specific actionable feedback.
I think if the board is not inclined to give a certificate of appropriateness, the board needs to give site specifics,
think-
not
Yeah.
generalities.
I think we want to have this move forward. We're not. Trying
understand
to,
that.
Yeah, we're not trying to stop this construction.
I understand
I
that.
think Terry's point is, again, this is a really big project.
Can you define big? Like, what do you mean? I'm adding 2,500 square feet total, maybe 2,000. I don't have it, say it's 2,500. It's still smaller than the existing structure. And it's going to be 40 feet wide from the street, from the front view. So when you say it's a big project, like, I don't, the size of it should matter. It should be down to what is the architecture, and if the board doesn't, issue a certificate of appropriateness, the board needs to provide specifics. The board can't give generalities and ambiguity things and say things like incongruities and inconsistencies. I don't have anything actionable that I can go back to my architect. I could play him this hour-long video of this board meeting, and he could say, I don't know what they want.
Well, I think what we're thinking of is possibly scaling down to make it look more like the roof line, at least, of the older structure.
Terry, we already commented that that can't be done. And we already said that
I
the size
think
and
that's
scale
what
of
we
it is
said.
not,
Um,
if I understood Dave, the size and scale of
have
this is
made
not in question. Am I correct with that?
We've made specific
correct?
recommendations, I'm sorry.
You were just saying, is the scale, the size of the building okay to not change between now and 1 month from now?
Oh, no.
Okay, but now you're asking me to change the roof line,
So,
which
and
again, I can't, I've already discussed why the roof line needs to be the way it is.
I think with the,
Can I, if
Semantics, the
you,
roof line needs to be the way it is because it's an addition.
Correct.
Like, that addition doesn't need to exist, right?
it does for my family, yeah.
Right, because you want it to exist, which is fine, and we want it to, but some of the things that they don't need to be that way. And again, we're not trying to create a non-functional home for you. But I think, as Terry said, I think we need more time to evaluate this. It would be very helpful to bring the architect in so we can have a more fulsome conversation around the design choices.
Okay. But I don't have an architect here today, but that shouldn't preclude the board from giving me specifics. I've gotten specifics on the front. I've gotten water table, I've gotten out of fourth window, I've gotten get rid of the cupola. We're talking about a side elevation, which you guys are obviously considering a front, but it's a side elevation, and that's where the most focus is on. And I don't have anything concrete that I can walk out of here with. And I think it's the board's job. The board is going to say, this does not meet our requirements for a certificate of appropriateness, then the board needs to give me something that I can walk out of here that's actionable. Because again, right now,
I think what we're trying to avoid is saying, make the right elevation of the addition look like the existing structure. And I think we could default to that and say, that doesn't look like that. We gave you the reasons why. I think we're trying to give more concrete feedback, but it is challenging without just doing a redesign, right? But as I look at the two, the scale is different, the window cadence is different, the surface is different, the use of dormers is different. There are a lot of differences. And that's,
when you say where are the dormers different? You mean here?
No, on the gable dormer.
This one?
I'm sorry. No, sorry, to the left of the door. My bad.
This one?
No, to the left.
This.
Yes,
It's a bay window.
right. The dormer above the bay.
That's the roof line for the bay window. It's not a dormer.
It reads and functions as a dormer.
No, it doesn't. It's a bay window. So if we have a bay window, how else would you frame the roof line?
You could not have a bay window.
So you're telling me I could have a flat roof there with a bay window? Doesn't work. The roof line has to come out to meet the bay.
Yes, to accommodate a bay window. I understand that.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like we're talking in a circle.
All I'm asking for is, again, you're the board, you're telling me that this side elevation doesn't meet your needs. I'm asking for feedback, and I'm not getting anything.
well, okay, one proposal was, would you be willing, or did you say it was impossible to bring the architect back with you?
I'm happy to bring the architect back. I'm not happy about being delayed a month to have an architect come in here and explain the majority of what I can explain to you.
Let me tell you what the norm is as far as everyone else who brings a presentation, and that is that they come with their architect. So that's one of the reasons. He did a very nice job of sending you off with your packet, I can assure you. But normally, it's the architect who makes the presentation. And so we're used to hearing that and getting ideas of why they put something where they did and the explanation. As far as we can go, and with the window changes that you have already agreed to, it's with the greatest reluctance that I'm going to propose a certificate of appropriateness, but with the understanding that you will follow through with those changes.
Correct. To the front elevation, correct. The 4 windows, the stone water table, no
Yeah.
cupola.
And I don't feel good about the roof line, but I think we've had a lot of water go under the bridge,
Just so the board
over
knows,
the dam,
from
and
a
everything else.
perspective, this project, we're actually, this is for a different board, but we're removing 600 square feet of, the net total impervious is negative 600. We're removing significant portion of the driveway behind the house. We're putting in grass. So the net impervious to this project is negative 600 from where it is today, and we're putting in an infiltration bed on top of that. So
I would really need, if I make such a proposal, to have your feelings. You do not have to be an automatic second. You can make a counter proposal.
Terry, I want to make sure I understand. So you're proposing not a continuance, but a certificate of appropriateness?
Provided those changes are made that have been suggested.
Just the changes to the the stated front
Right.
elevation.
Now, this is with the understanding that they are unable to bring the roof line to have a livable house with the other house. That is the way I understand
correct.
this. So it would be,
Does that address the concerns that Bob raised to you?
well,
Okay.
Bob?
Yeah.
Um,
I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just trying to find out what Bob had indicated.
Bob
His issue was
felt
the thing was too big.
the size of the addition was disproportionate.
Okay. Right,
And
but I think we've addressed that as much as we can. Is there anything, did Bob raise anything about the incongruity or whatever the words we've used
I
of
think
the new and the
basically
old
it
and the
had to do with
elevation?
the size of the construction overwhelming the original.
Yes.
But I don't, he did not have as much chance to study, well, he did in terms of having it on a desk, but when you see it on a screen, you can see how different. The new is from the old.
So, let me understand, why is it you want to do a certificate tonight instead of a continuance?
He just asked for a continuance to study it longer after we had had a discussion.
Mhm. I had gotten to the point where a continuance made some sense to me from the dialogue we'd had, not to penalize this gentleman. That would allow the architect to come in, that would allow this dialogue of the elements. But are you saying that, you're sort of saying, are you agreeing that this right elevation is really not the front elevation, and therefore you're not as concerned
Well,
about it?
Anything that's visible from the street, the only saving grace that I can see is the fact that it's not facing the street.
Yeah,
There's your
and
viewpoint
it's a
again.
couple hundred feet back.
And there's the vantage point again from the street.
Right.
So,
Does that big holly thing remain?
It's probably not.
Probably not. I thought that was what I saw.
and I would like
Yeah.
your proposal.
Right, so I'm feeling a little bit torn, right? Because if I think about the new structure and the old structure, they don't go well together. At the same time, I understand that the old structure is essentially a garage, and you're building a home. And so how careful, not careful is not the right word, but I guess, how much should we focus on the relationship to the existing structure if the existing structure is basically a secondary structure? And the new home looks well enough. I think the only things I would just make two comments on the right elevation. It looks like the tops of the windows in the gable on the first floor are higher than the tops of the patio doors and the tops of the front doors. If you could just align those. I'm thinking on the existing right elevation,
Yeah.
everything is
And they will be.
great. Okay. And then the diamond patterned window above the front door, if you could center that to the front door.
This one right here?
Yeah,
Sure.
great.
I didn't realize it was offside.
Yeah, I don't know if that was meant to be or if that was just the drawing on the elevation, but that would benefit, I think, you in the long run anyway. That plus the changes to the front elevation, adding the symmetry, I think that's probably sufficient for me. Understand, and I know we've had a long conversation here, and it's a challenging conversation because the scale and we talked about defining the scale and defining the magnitude. You are creating a new primary mass. You are subordinating the existing mass. So this becomes a much bigger project than simply an addition, even though it is technically an addition in square foot size. You are creating a new primary home. That's why it's taken so long. And also, we get not that many examples of something like this where essentially you're creating a new primary on an existing. So I know for me personally, it took a while to think through all the implications of that. I think ultimately I'm landing on the existing structure is not that precious. Let's allow you to add a well-designed, functionally effective single-family home onto it, knowing that it will be somewhat visible from the street, but even the part that's, it'll still look good. It's not like it's not that it's going to look bad.
It's going to look better than a dilapidated
It's
greenhouse.
going to look a lot better than the greenhouse.
That's true.
And I think, and this is just me thinking out loud at this point, but I actually feel fairly comfortable arriving at that conclusion. So the pieces that I mentioned on the right elevation, what Terry mentioned on the front elevation, I don't care about the cupola. Take it or leave it.
I don't care about it either.
I don't care.
If you're in love with it, keep it.
Yeah, if you like it, keep
I
the
mean,
cupola. Why not? Whatever.
It's a bold statement for me.
Pardon?
I said I could go either way.
Yeah.
Your call.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I got it. So water table, fourth
I would
window
say-
there.
Actually, I would say, I don't know if you need the water table on the front necessarily. I don't know what you guys think.
I'm not, if we're backing off.
Because then
on some of
if
this
you
stuff-
have it on the front, you're going to need to carry it over on the full right
It's
elevation.
going to create an awkward transition.
Yeah, I would
Right.
nix the water table on the
Okay.
front elevation. I think
So
that'd be too difficult.
fourth window here.
Yeah, just put
Yeah,
a fourth
put a
window
window in.
there.
Okay.
Um,
And front, center this, and have these window lines.
Yeah.
The
So you get the same,
Yep.
vertical accuracy of the ones on the front. And then, there's, it's a close relationship. Yeah, I mean, it's tough because you're basically, like, if I were to design this in my head, it would look very different, but that's a stylistic choice, and you're dealing with a specific program for yourself, as well as it sounds like basically an existing structure that you can't do anything to
It's
because
very
it's
unforgiving.
rock solid.
It's rock solid and it's slab on grade. And
Okay. So I'm fine with that.
Well, then, is that equivalent to a second?
That, second.
That's fine.
All in favor?
In favor?
Okay.
Aye.
So
thank you very much.
With the changes requested, done for the evening. We have
I'm glad there's nobody behind me.
anything you would like to add, Lee?
I would say for future projects of this is not for you.
Yeah.
And no one watches this, other than, no one watches this. But for future projects of this scale, it would be highly recommended to have the architect
Yeah.
Oh,
present.
definitely.
I
Well,
think so.
again, this is an aberration. It's,
If I should be so lucky as to be in front of you again, I'll bring an architect.
Yeah,
Thank you again.
yeah, thank you.
and if you didn't look like my son, you'd have had a much worse chance.
And if you didn't look like wait a minute, no.
But having said that,
Yeah, good luck. I mean, it's gonna be a huge project anyway. Best of luck.
It is. It's
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
be,
When do you hope to occupy?
what's that?
When would you hope to occupy the new,
Also, we're living
full
there now.
building? I know.
Are you gonna
When do
live
you
there
hope to-
while
I
they're?
don't think
Re-
we might have to be
reorgan-
out for part of it, because
Yeah.
unfortunately, right where the greenhouse runs into the one-story,
Yeah.
that's where gas, electric, sewer,
Oh.
and all of it comes in right there. So I think we'll be out for a while, because we won't have, that chimney vents the only heating system too. So as soon as that chimney comes out, we can't run heat because we don't have any.
So
way to
you're
exhaust.
moving out for some months and then,
We're gonna have to move out for, I'm hoping no more than 2 months. This isn't
Okay.
being recorded, right? I don't want my wife to see this.
no, it's all right.
We're gonna try our best to stay there if we can, for as long as we can.
Yeah.
The pool house structure actually has laundry and a bathroom, so, we can
That's good.
get by
It's
with the
something.
basics. It's
Yeah,
something, so we're
It's
gonna
not a
try,
lot, but yeah.
we're gonna try to be out. Again, we just moved 4 kids. We lived on the other side of Wayne, but we moved school districts, so we're trying to maintain some level of continuity in their lives, and
Right.
moving in and then moving out and going somewhere else, and it's just,
Yeah,
Creates
it's a lot.
challenges.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
but I appreciate you guys working with me on
Yeah.
this, and
Thank you.
You know, we don't see this type of project often. I had to think for a long time about it.
yeah, it's definitely
Um,
unique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I had to think really hard before I bought it, because I couldn't
yeah. And then
couldn't get it either, and then it kind of, with my wife's help, kind of came into focus.
Yeah.
Did you have a good idea of what you were going to do when you bought it? Did you already have this mass and some of this envisioned?
I didn't, no.
Yeah.
What I became comfortable with was, and the board doesn't want to hear this, but where the pergola is to the pool,
Yeah.
there's enough space there to, if we wanted to take those down and build a new house, we could have done that.
Mhm.
Mm.
And then.
So like just in case, if you had to
If
do
it's a
it.
fallback, like nothing else works, but it just doesn't make sense to have a secondary structure that's that big, it just
Right.
didn't, so primary focus, and then, I didn't have the benefit of a survey. I felt like the corners of the addition, or the greenhouse were within the setbacks,
Yeah.
and I knew if they weren't, it's just an existing nonconformity, I'd have to work with it. But there's a lot of steps involved with this, so.
Yeah, really.
I wasn't completely comfortable until I knew there was at least a fallback plan, but we really wanted to work with the existing structure and, make it into something beautiful, which,
Yeah.
I think we're on the path to that. And I think you guys had some good input tonight, so hopefully, with those improved changes, when you walk by it and it's done, you'll think it looks like a good project and a good,
Yeah.
good addition to the neighborhood.
It was good after 2 weeks or 2 months of projects where we basically didn't have to approve anything because the changes were de minimis. Now
Yeah.
you gave us a real challenge, so thanks for that.
All right,
Thank
thank you
you.
again.
Yeah.
All right, thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Going to back to school night.
Oh, yeah.
meeting adjourned. This is my son.
Oh, yeah, he does look like it. That's funny.
I just wondered what the final ruling is, because everything went back and forth.
Yeah.
So the continuance and what was the final?
So we did recommend